Hello guys, and welcome back. Now folks, we got a little bit of a doozy here today, reacting to the top 100 player predictions from ESPN. Now the only thing I really know about this list is how high Seth Jones is, which isn't the greatest first impression. But we're gonna give it a chance, we're gonna see how it goes, and we're gonna see what ESPN's top 100 looks like. And here it is, the top 100 player predictions for the 2024 season by ESPN. And here it says, we asked an ESPN panel of more than 50 broadcasters, analysts, reporters, and editors rate players based on how good they will be in the 2024 season compared to their peers. Now, it's kind of confusing to think about, but for ESPN, this ranking isn't the top 100 players right now. It's more so the players that will be ranked in this order after this next season, what the general consensus might look like, so keep that in mind. And right before we get to the top 100, if you guys are enjoying, hit that like button and subscribe if you're new for more hockey content just like this all throughout the year, because you guys won't want to miss a video. We're going to go through this top 100. I might not touch on every single player here, but just the guys that I find interesting. And let's scroll through, and I guess the first three players on the list are Tomas Hertl, Ryan O'Reilly, and Owen Power. Certainly an interesting top three. Tomas Hertl, I think, makes sense around this range. Of course, with aggression of San Jose, like Gregor Wyshynski notes, it's going to be hard for him to put up points, but he still is a great overall player. What's not surprising, though, is Owen Power coming here at number 98. Again, because these are player predictions after this season, that means that for Owen Power, we'll have 2 full years under the belt with him, and in the top 100, that isn't all that crazy. Well, let's keep going here. At a number 97 is Sergei Bobrovsky of the Florida Panthers. I mean, sure. Why not, I guess. As Wyshynski notes, if you average out the play regular season Bob with playoff Bob, you get a goaltender worthy of being in the top 100. I would personally disagree with that because over the past few years, playoff Bob has really been the only great Bob. He had a pretty good season, I believe, in 2022 in the regular season, but besides that, his regular season play has been disappointing at best. And to me, putting him in the top 100 is questionable. Then we keep going. You got Morgan Riley at 96. Doesn't really surprise me too much with, I guess, the defensive pedigree he has. I mean, at this spot, we'll see who's ahead of him, but Morgan Riley definitely makes sense here. Then you got JT Miller at number 95. Considering how good of an offensive stint he's had in Vancouver, I'm surprised to see him this low. He was 53rd in last year's rankings, which, I mean, you would expect a drop-off, but 42 spots is kind of bold. John Carlson at 94, that makes sense too, not really too surprising. John Tavares at 93, that might be something that really gets people fired up. I know that people don't like to say it, but Tavares has produced at a great rate, even if that contract is way overpaid. Sure, it is, but he's always hovered around a point per game pace, is always fantastic in the face-off dot. I mean, he's a player that is still great, is still at a great top 6 level, so he's gonna be on. Now here's the thing, the only other thing I actually saw about this list was Evgeny Malkin not being on, which when you look at what he's done over the past few years is actually pretty asinine. Of course, he was over a point per game in 2022 when he was healthy, then played a full 82 game season, which we wanted to see out of him for so long, and was over a point per game as well with 83 points there. And so far the start of this season, he has been blistering with a 2 point per game. Having him off this list is gonna look brutal, folks. Let's go through 92, Drew Doughty. I don't really hate that hot spot at all. In fact, I'm kind of surprised Drew Doughty fell as much as he did. He's still actually at the top of his game and still has a lot of room to grow. He really hasn't declined as much as I thought he would. Still, Drew Doughty is top 100 for sure. Then you got Matthew Barzal at 91 overall. If not for the lower body injury that sidelined him for 2 months, Barzal would have scored more than 70 points for the second time of his career. I mean, sure, but where's the defensive play? Where's the actual effort on the ice? Barzal being 91 while Malkin's off the list, I don't like that. Now let's keep going. Jacob Trouba, 90th overall. Okay, Trouba packs a punch from the blue line, both in his steady two-way contributions and throwback physical nature. Again, now that I know that Malkin's off the list, off the top 100, having players like Barzal and Trouba on it is definitely interesting. I mean, no disrespect to Trouba. He's great physically, can put up some punch offensively too, but having him 90th ahead of Malkin at this stage still is crazy. Now going on to number 8, Connor Bedard of the Chicago Blackhawks. Okay, a lot to dive into this. Of course, the fact that this is player predictions after the 2024 season, I was kind of surprised to maybe see Bedard so low, considering, of course, he'd have his first NHL season under his belt. I think already many people consider him a top player in this league, a top 100 player in this league, but after his first NHL season to only be 88th is kind of surprising. I was kind of going into this being like, could he be top 50? Could Bedard be top 50? No, 88th overall. Okay. Next up, let's go on to number 87, Brandon Montour. Okay. Nazem Kadri, 86th. All right. Kadri's first season in Calgary was productive, but he and the Flames were hoping for a breakout season after missing the playoffs in 2023. Was it productive? I don't think it was very productive at all. I mean, production-wise, it was okay. Productive, though, he did not look right with Calgary, and 86, having him this high, I mean, it feels like that season in Colorado, that last season in Colorado was an absolute fluke. Seeming like that's going to be a high point for him. Obviously, drops quite a bit of spots, but to see him still so high, I'm not sure about that. I mean, dude, so far, Kadri has 0 points. It is a -4 through 3 games with the Flames. He's at the top 90 ahead of Bedard? Sure, bud. And especially when you go on to the fact that 85th is Cole and Caulfield of the Montreal Canadiens. Okay, Caulfield and Kadri being back-to-back is wild to me. But, of course, he was an honorable mention, I guess, in the last ranking last year. He deserves to be in the top 100. Good for that. At number 84, Alex Pietrangelo. This one I'm kind of surprised to not see maybe more upward movement. He was 95th in last year's ranking, 84th here today. Considering, of course, how influential he was in the Cup run there and just how solid he's been over the past couple of years. 84th. Kind of surprising he's that low. On to 83, Patrik Laine. He's been pretty underrated the past year, I would say, and especially in his overall game, dropping him from 47 to 83. That's the most surprising thing. I think Laine has gotten just as a better overall player recently, and the fact that he almost drops 40 spots, I'm not sure what the reasoning is. And it's even more weird when it says injuries have frustrated Laine lately. And when you look at it, in the 2022 ranking, he was in the top 50 and played 56 games, but he dropped so much because of injuries when he played one less game last year. All right. To 80. I know he had a great start to the season, but if this was made before the start, what is he doing at a top 85? Ahead of Laine? Ahead of Pietrangelo? Ahead of Caulfield? Brock Besser? Coming in at number 81, Jesper Bratt. I mean, the fact that Bratt and Besser are back-to-back is crazy. Bratt should be much higher. He wasn't ranked after last year, but he should be in, honestly, the top 70 to me. He has proved himself as such an influential winger on that Devils team. The fact that he's only 81, I mean, obviously, with Jack Hughes, they're going to be amazing, but Bratt has been special in his own right. At number 80, Thatcher Demko, which is also pretty interesting. Again, these are predictions after this next year, so if they see Thatcher Demko having a great season, I mean, but they dropped him from 49 to 80. I don't really know what's happening there, but I do see Demko having a solid season. Oh boy, Jacob Slavin over Moritz Seider is a take. I mean, to me, this is pretty crazy. Even if this is predictions after this next year, I think there's a pretty slim chance that Mo Seider is actually a better defenseman than Jacob Slavin when it's all said and done, with how consistent Slavin is in the overall game, with how premier he is in the defensive side. I love Moritz Seider, and I think potentially someday he will overpass Slavin, but Slavin is a solidified top 10 D. You could say defensively is top 5 for sure, and for Moritz Seider, sure, he could have a great resurgent season again, but I think it's going to take a lot for him to get ahead of Jacob Slavin, man. Come on. Now let's go on 77, Matt Boldy. Like to see him here this high. From what he's shown, he has been incredible. Jordan Kyrou, 76. I mean, as an offensive center, he has shown a lot. Devon Taves, 70. Okay, I don't get what's happening with these depression and rankings. Taves going from 59 to 75. Well, what's the reason for that? He hasn't regressed at all. Offensively, maybe took a little bit of a step back, but also he's still generating amazing quality chances. Defensively, he's still one of the best in the league. 75 is just straight up disrespectful, man. I'm sorry. This is a top 15 D in this league, and having him 75th, I just not gonna let that stand. I'm not gonna let that stand, man. Number 74, Joe Pavelski. We all know he should be number 1, though, so this list is automatically disqualified. Then you go on to Pierre-Luc Dubois, Mark Scheifele. Those rankings don't really mind me too much. You got Jake Gensel as well, 71. Jonathan Huberdeau, what a drop-off from 15th to 70th. This is kind of strange to me, though, with predictions, because we all know how rough of a season he had last year, but I would say Huberdeau's going to have a pretty great season, a much better season, and a much more improved year. And again, the fact that this is a prediction that Huberdeau will be down to 70 after this year, I mean, again, if you consider last year, maybe you take that into account here, but it's just very strange to see him to have that much of a drop-off when I think we all consider him to be in a more resurging year. Then you go on to the 69, having Kyle Connor at this spot. I mean, it's not nice at all, man. This is insane. How consistent Connor has been in his goal scoring and his offense, truly leading Winnipeg in so many big categories. Having him 69th after this next year, I mean, dropping him 34 spots. What did he do to deserve that? Sure, he dropped a few goals and points last year, but he was still great and was pretty snake-bitten throughout that entire year. Could have absolutely gotten more goal scoring, and so far, he's a goal per game this year. he's gonna be fine. Then you go to number 66, Alex DeBrincat. He dropped 30 spots from last year, which I can see why. But again, if we're going on playoff, actual regular season predictions after this year, the fact that he dropped 30 spots is surprising to me, at least, considering how good of a start he's had with Detroit and how really we all assumed he'd have a good season with Detroit as well. He's probably going to be much better than this and already has been. Now we keep going. Tyler Toffoli at 65. That is hot, but I love the Tyler Toffoli love, so I will give that a break. Then we go into 64, and I gotta say, I hope so. I hope Zach Werenski is still in this spot after this year, but I doubt it. Of course, I had to draft Zach Werenski in both of my fantasy leagues this year, so you can tell I'm a little bit frustrated with him getting injured again. Anyways, let's go on to 63. Josh Morrissey being in this spot is honestly pretty surprising considering how good of a season he had last year and how I think the reputation of him has really skyrocketed. He wasn't ranked last year, like he probably shouldn't have been ranked, but I thought he might even be in the top 50 for them, but glad to see he's outside of that. Elias Lindholm being 62, rising 14 spots? You dropped Huberdeau by like, what was it, like 70 friggin' points, and now Lindholm is getting all this love. That's pretty interesting. Let's keep going here. Brent Burns at 61 isn't all that surprising considering how good he's been with Carolina. Quinn Hughes at 60. Oh boy. See, this is where we get absolutely bananas, folks. Because having Quinn Hughes, dropping him 2 spots from last year, how does it even happen? I know I've said that with quite a few rankings on this list, but genuinely, how does that happen? We all know he's gonna have a monster year. He had a monster year last year, improving in a lot of key areas, and defensively, he keeps getting better and better right in the prime of his career. 60th is just straight disrespectful. There's no other way to put it. Now, moving on from that, Jonathan Marchessault being on this list makes sense considering his Conn Smythe run and how good he's been so far to start with Vegas. Timo Meier, 58th. Not ranked last year is pretty interesting, but I think even though he's had a rough spot with New Jersey, he's going to eventually get past that for them. You got Andrei Vasilevskiy here, dropping 47 spots. I mean, obviously the injury does play a part in things, but 47 spots, man. I mean, that's brutal. And I like that I don't even mention why. It's just because of the possible 2-month absence that it could further underscore his importance to the Bolts. He's still one of the most dominant goaltenders when healthy. But 57? I mean, I don't think Vasilevskiy is the best goaltender in the world right now. I think Shesterkin or Sorokin have taken that mantle. But the fact that you drop in 47 spots, I just don't see how that could even happen if you still call him one of the most dominant goaltenders in the world. Now let's keep going here. Chris Letang at 56, rising from 92 to 56. I mean, Chris Letang has looked good to start out this season, but rising in the way that he has above Quinn Hughes, I should say. Quinn Hughes, man. And again, he's produced so far solidly this season, but 41 points in 64 games with the defensive deficiencies we know he has. The fact that he'd be this high, man. I mean, again, I love Chris Letang. I love that he's back and still going, but 56th? What's happening? Let's keep going here. Clayton Keller with 55. I mean, he was not ranked last year, which is crazy, but he will be a lot higher. I doubt that he will not be a top 50 player after this year. He continues to be absolutely dominant. Dylan Larkin going from 48 to 54 is surprising to me, but I do like to see the Dylan Larkin love. He is pretty underrated as a center. You got Mikhail Sergachev rising quite a bit. That makes sense for me. Here we go, though. The big one, the big whammy, Seth Jones, 52nd. Above Quinn Hughes, Kyle Connor, Jonathan Huberdeau, you name it. So far, Seth Jones is above them. A good offensive D that has been crammed and creamed on a bad team. Seth Jones is a solid D. But having him 52nd, I mean, you make up your own mind. This is really what started me making this video, though. The fact that he's 52nd, I just don't see how that happens. I'm sorry. Especially when you consider that UC Saros, not even top 50 dude. I mean, what did UC Saros do to deserve this? One of the best goaltenders in the league, carries Nashville in a lot of ways. He drops from 29 to 51. I don't understand how that happened. Especially when you consider that Philip Forsberg is ahead of them. I like Philip Forsberg, man, but he should not be above any... UC Saros should not be behind any National Predator in player rankings. That is just disrespectful. Well, let's get through for the top 50. Dougie Hamilton at 49. That makes sense. Good around that range. Jacob Chychrun rising this many spots is interesting. He's been solid so far with Ottawa. We'll see if he's able to get there. Linus Ullmark, 47 for the Boston Bruins. That isn't all that crazy to me. Kevin Fiala being 46. I do like him a lot, and I do think he's underrated, but I think this is definitely quite a bit high for him, especially with the defensive play that he has. It's pretty lackluster. And especially when you consider the Anze Kopitar is right next to him. Kopitar at this stage is still world class, and surprising it was so low, 91st overall in the last ranking. Tage Thompson, 44th. that doesn't really surprise me too much. Kind of surprised he's not higher on this list, honestly. Let's keep going with Mika Zibanejad at 42, 16th in the last ranking. That's quite a bit high for him. He drops a little bit more to, I think, his normal spot, but still interesting to see him this low. Then you got Erik Karlsson, 41st overall, the Pittsburgh Penguins. That makes sense after not ranking him last year. William Nylander, 40th. I love to see Willie getting some love, so I will take that. Then you got Mark Stone at 38th, which when he is healthy, I mean, I could absolutely see him in this spot, but again, considering some of the wingers ahead of him, players like Kyle Connor, players as well like Clayton Keller, I mean, Mark Stone obviously had a great playoffs, but that seems to be carrying him quite a bit. Then you got Alex Ovechkin, 37th, which considering how bad Washington is, I could absolutely see Ovechkin being in this spot. And then you go through how he's played this season, 2 games, 0 points, and 0 goals. I hope this is not a pattern throughout the rest of this year, man. We deserve more Ovi goals. Let's keep going. Rupe Hintz, 36th overall. I mean, not ranking him last year is just insane to me, but I'm glad he's getting the recognition he deserves as a top-tier center in this league. Brad Marchand, jumping up spots from last year is crazy to me. I mean, we'll still see Marchand have a great year, but considering the lack of center depth that Boston has, it's surprising to see that they actually see him jumping after this next year. Jake Ottinger, 34th. I hope that he has a great season and the best season of his career. Hopefully he'll get some best and love. That would be the best case scenario. It's interesting though, they put Panarin here at 32, dropping a lot like Mika Zibanejad, but he's been an absolute assassin so far. One of the Rangers' best players. Let's keep going though and go on to the top 30. Next is Ilya Sorokin of the New York Islanders. This doesn't really surprise me too much, but it's good to see him get a lot more recognition as one of the best goaltenders in this friggin' league, like he deserves to be looked at. Miro Heiskanen here at number 29. I'm honestly surprised to see him this low. Obviously in the top 30, I was kind of expecting maybe top 25, maybe even top 20, but I think he will be looked at as a top 5 defenseman, solidified after this year. He should be by everybody, but solidified as so, maybe even top 3. He deserves that recognition. He is that's elite. Then we keep going with Igor Shesterkin being number 28. Also surprising, he dropped 17 spots from last year. I know last year wasn't too great, but I feel like we all considered him a rebound season. So far he has. You also got Roman Josi, 27. To me, having Roman Josi as better than Miro Heiskanen at this stage is crazy to me. I know the offensive stats pump it up quite a bit, but to me, Heiskanen is just better overall. I'm sorry, but I'll forgive that one. Whatever. Rasmus Dahlin coming in at 26. This doesn't surprise me either, considering, of course, how insane last year was. I think we'll continue to see him rise, though the start of the season has been elite for him so far. I think we'll eventually see him rebound from a slower start. You got Charlie McAvoy, 25th. Interesting to see him still so high here. He actually rises from last year's rankings. Interestingly so. Okay. Number 24, Brayden Point. Sidney Crosby being number 23. I mean, the fact that Crosby's outside the top 20, Malkin outside the top 100. I mean, even though they give a lot of credit to Chris Letang, I'd imagine Penguins fans aren't all too happy with this rank. Especially considering Sebastian Aho ahead of him. I mean, I like Sebastian Aho, but to me, he's kind of around that more 10 to 15 range in the center rankings. Above Crosby, that is a prediction for sure. You keep going, and Tim Stützle coming in at 21st overall. That is quite a take as well, having him this high. You got Mitch Marner at 20th. That doesn't really surprise me too much. Brady Tkachuk in the top 19, rising quite a bit. Victor Hedman going from 8 to 18. To me, I don't really see there being a situation where he's looked at as better than Miro Heiskanen, at least at the end of the season. He's gotten off to a solid start offensively, but to me, Hedman defensively at this stage is still not where he needs to be and has regressed quite a bit. I'd be surprised to see him ranked this high. Then we keep going. Kirill Kaprizov going down 10 spots. This to me is just not going to happen. I think he's going to have a massive monster year of Minnesota. Dropping in 10 spots, I just don't see it. Elias Pettersson, 16. This to me is quite a bit interesting. Not having him in the top 15, and especially having him under Barkov after this season. To me, there is a case we made that maybe Barkov was better after last season in slight ways with a 3-year sample size. But after this next year, I'm sorry, Pettersson is going to be a top 10 player. Having him 16, I know I've said it's straight disrespectful a lot, but this is straight disrespectful. Having Elias Pettersson outside the top 15, Quinn Hughes at the spot he was at. I mean, I said Pens fans might not like this list. Canucks fans, how are you guys feeling about this? Because for me, I would just not take this level of disrespect. I'm sorry. Let's keep going. Barkov in the top 15. Connor Hellebuck, 14th. Interesting that it seems like he's going to be above Vasilevsky and Shesterkin and Sorokin as a goaltender. I mean, really? Let's keep going though. Adam Fox at 13th. That makes sense for me. Jason Robertson, 12th. That also makes sense. Matthew Tkachuk, kind of surprised he's not in the top 10, honestly. Pastrnak here at 10th, considering the monster season he had last year and how good of a start he's gotten offensively. That doesn't surprise me as well. Jack Eichel, though. 9th overall. That is one heck of a prediction, going from 25 to 9th. You must assume that he's going to have a monster year. I mean, obviously great in the playoffs. We saw that. But about players like Pastrnak, Robertson, Adam Fox? Okay. I think it's just kind of interesting considering he's just a point per game so far this year, and again was kind of more along that lines last season. I think the way that Vegas is set up, there's not really one situation where one player can be this 100-point scorer necessarily with how balanced that team is. To see Eichel and the top 10 would be pretty insane. Let's keep going here. Nikita Kucherov at 8th. I can see why you'd have him. I wouldn't have him this high, but it is what it is. You got Mikko Rantanen in 7th after being 24th last year. I guess they see a monster year out of him, which I could see the case happening. Leon Draisaitl, 6th. That's pretty interesting. Only having him 6th overall, not inside the top 5. I see him still as a top 3 center in this league. Having him 6th is definitely interesting. You got Auston Matthews coming here at number 5. Interesting to have him 3rd, now 5th in this ranking. But, I mean, I think we all knew that he was going to rebound in a big way goal scoring wise. He already has, of course. I'm not too surprised by that. I would be surprised to see him in this spot when it's all said and done. Let's go into the top 4. Whoa, baby. Okay, this is scorching. This is absolutely scorching, folks. At the end of the year, to consider Jack Hughes better than Auston Matthews, Leon Draisaitl. Okay, I mean, this is fiery. This is spicy. But again, ESPN is predicting Jack Hughes to be the better player, to be the widely consensus better player than Auston Matthews and Leon Draisaitl. I love Jack. We all know he's going to have a monster year. He has had a monster year so far, but that is going to be weird if it does happen, folks. Over Matthews, I don't know if that ends up happening. But that is especially hot. You got Nathan McKinnon coming in at 3rd overall. You got Cale Makar 2nd overall, which isn't all too surprising to me to see him up this high. And of course, at number 1, you got Connor McDavid, 1st overall in the ESPN rankings. Nothing surprising. Now, thankfully for us, they actually have a list of honorable mentions, players that just missed this list that they consider to be maybe in the top 110 after this next year. And these are some really interesting names. Chris Kreider, Alex Tuch, Trevor Zegras, Troy Terry, Noah Dobson, Bo Horvat, Carter Verhaeghe, Adam Fantilli, Logan Cooley, and Adrian Kempe. No Kreider, no Kempe, no Tuch, no Malkin. But the rest of those names are weird to me. How is Trevor Zegras going to be that good? I don't see that happening. Noah Dobson should not even be close to a list like this. I'm sorry. Him being an honorable mention is honestly insulting. Same thing goes for players like Fantilli and Cooley. I mean, I think they're going to have good rookie seasons, but after this next year, to be in that top 100 range, I just don't really see that happening with them. And players like Kreider out, Tuch out, Kempe out. Kempe especially is just crazy with how good of a goal scorer he's been the last couple of years. This list would have some massive changes if I were a part of it. I'd just say that. But the fact that Malkin isn't even an honorable mention, man. Way over a point per game over these past 3 seasons. I know the health injury history is rough to see, but he really hasn't dealt with that for a couple of years now. Not being an honorable mention, not being in the top 110, man. That's pretty crazy. But those are the top 100 player predictions from ESPN. Let us know down below, what do you guys agree and disagree with this list? What are your biggest predictions to happen? Do you see anything happening on this list that will actually be the case a year ahead of time? Do you see Jack Hughes being a top 5 player in the league after this next year? Let us know your thoughts down below. Of course, make sure you hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit that notification bell if you guys enjoy the breakdown and the ranking look through. And of course, make sure you share the video with all the hockey fans you guys know online. Get the ESPN rankings out there and click on this card for all of my hockey rankings content right in one playlist. My name is Nathan, and I will see you in the next one. Have a great day, and goodbye.